Hi, I'm Dom Hind, and fuck, I'm nearly 50. Actually, I'm 47 and a half, but who's counting? When I first met today's guest, I was deep in the middle of investigating my own health, trying to figure out what was going on with my liver. And in the middle of all the medical jargon, the tests, and the uncertainty, I met someone whose work absolutely fascinated me. Dr. Craig Haifer is a gastroenterologist, a researcher, and one of the most forward-thinking minds when it comes to gut health. He splits his time between private practice, public practice, and academic research. And he also somehow finds the time to run 2 events at Gwingana every year. But here's the thing that really got me hooked into his research: Poo Transplants. You're right, Poo Transplants. I didn't even know that that was a thing that existed. We're talking about potential game changer for everything from mental health to autoimmunity. So today we're diving into it all: gut health, the future of medicine, and why what happens in your gut might just be the key to everything in your body. Because fuck, I'm nearly 50, and isn't it amazing? Most people don't spend a lot of time thinking about their gut health until something goes wrong. But what if we've been thinking about health the wrong way this whole time? What if our gut is actually the command centre for everything? Dr. Craig Haifer is at the forefront of gut health research, exploring everything from the impact of gut bacteria on our mood to the potential of fecal microbiota. How do you
Faecal microbiota?
Okay,
or
yes.
FMT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that is Poo Transplants to treat chronic disease. Today we're breaking down the science, the myths, and what happens in your gut that doesn't stay in your gut. Dr. Craig Haifer, welcome to Fuck, I'm Nearly 50.
Thank you, Tom. It's great to be here. It's always an exciting conversation, even better over dinner, but this will do.
Before we get into the details, if you had to introduce yourself at a dinner party, how would you do it?
Good question. So, I guess first and foremost, I'm a dad. I'm dad of 2 young boys.
Yes.
Slightly depressing, but I still don't quite know what I want in life.
Yeah.
It's also a big thing, but
particularly with what you're doing now. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, exactly. But it allows me to go on very big tangents where if I find something I'm interested in, I'll research it to the nth degree. I'll want to understand it and want to figure out how I can do it better. And that's led me down. There's all these different pathways that we can talk about, a few of them today.
Yeah, amazing. And I love that because it means that you're not in that, you're in that growth mindset.
Yeah.
And you're always looking for something else.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm always looking for something else as well, which is why it was when I was sitting as a patient of yours, sitting there, and you started saying that you were into, in my simple Poo Transplants. I was like, what? I didn't even realize that was a thing. So it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, we hear so much about gut health these days, but why does it actually matter, and what's the big picture?
So we always thought that kind of everything in your gut was completely separate to the inside of your body, right? We thought it was 2 separate things. You had this wall in between, and what happened on the inside was different to the rest of your body. But there's more and more research in all fields, both in the wellness industry, been going on this for a long time, that it's all connected. That your gut is this window to the outside world, right? So there's this, I kind of always bring this up, where we always thought like your eyes were the windows to the soul, but really, let's call it what it is. Your arsehole is the window to the soul, right? And that everything outside will impact your gut microbiome, which will therefore have some impact on the rest of your body.
Okay.
And so we can do all we can to try and treat chronic illness. But we say, well, what's driving that chronic illness in the first place? Why is there increasing rates in every illness under the sun?
Yeah.
And it's generally related to what we eat, the environment we live in, and everything else around it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Then that is an interesting way of thinking about it. Like it really
What's changed? That's the things that have changed over years. It's not your genetics. Your genetics haven't changed.
Yeah.
What's changed over the last 10 to 15 years is our environment and everything we put in our mouth.
And I think that is it, everything you put in your mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah. When did you first get interested in the microbe? Bio.
Yes.
Was there a moment you thought this is where medicine needs to go?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I did my general medicine type training, and then I just got into gastroenterology. And I got into gastroenterology because I've got a lot of family members with inflammatory bowel disease, so Crohn's disease and
Yes.
ulcerative colitis. And I've seen a lot of them go through a lot of shit and a lot of bad kind of things on lots of different medicines. And it was always, I remember talking to a family member and they were saying, well, actually my naturopath said this, but I haven't told my doctor.
Right.
And it's a classic story, and it seems to be separate. And you can say, well, why can't they do both? Why can't they work complementary rather than alternatively?
Yeah.
And so it was a really interesting time with faecal transplants. Faecal transplants, or Poo transplants, what they are.
Yeah.
They've been around for a little while. You go back through the 14th century Chinese medicine. They used to use this green soup, documented the green soup to treat various ailments. So this is not new. This has been there forever.
Yeah.
The first case was documented, at least in literature, back in the 80s by a gentleman here in Sydney. But it was kind of going through this phase of there was increasing evidence for its use in certain conditions.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly you're saying, well, actually, you know what? We can do something to the microbiome, and it actually treats these illnesses that kill people every year. So surely we have some way of harnessing it and doing it better, not just with Poo transplants, with everything else you can do.
Yeah.
And particularly with things like Crohn's disease or inflammatory bowel disease, where it impacts the gut. Surely there's your first point of call. They say, it's in the gut. So how do we actually stop that happening?
Yeah.
And so that was at the end of my training. I was deciding what to do. My wife had just had a baby, and she was going back into training, and we were trying to figure out what I do. And I decided to do a PhD.
Yep.
And so I did my PhD looking at fecal transplants in the microbiome to treat ulcerative colitis, which is a form of inflammatory bowel disease. And that's kind of where it all stemmed off from there.
Were you early on in that?
Yeah, so I was by no means I was early on, but we started putting larger scale research to an area that was really considered witchcraft and wizardry, right? We said, well, how do we put this into practice? How do we actually get this used in day-to-day practice, and rather than just used when people got unhappy with traditional medicine?
Yes.
That they left their doctor, they disappeared for 6 months. They came back either in a better or worse state down the track. How can we use this alongside with what we do? And it was a really interesting stage because we had to convince our several ethics company through our university said, hell no, we're not letting you do any of this kind of work. So it was and even the TGA, our Therapeutics Goods Administration, like, you can't do this research. And so we ended up working with the TGA trying to define what actually is a Poo transplants, how do you do this safely? And that was a lot of part of my work, trying to say, well, how do we actually get this into practice? How can we actually use this? And then then you can do proper research to say, well, does it work or does it not work?
That's amazing. So you actually helped.
Yeah, it was really, as quite a young PhD. So I remember being in New Zealand on holiday, and I get this message from the teacher. So we've got a meeting tonight to kind of figure this out. And next thing, I'm on this Zoom call there's 3 or 4 people from the TGA. And next thing, the head of the TGA, who was then moved on to become one of the deputy chiefs during COVID to the government, was on this call. And I'm sitting there saying, well, this is what I think it is. And they were listening, and they're actually trying to work with it. It was a really exciting kind of time where I was like, I'm very underqualified to do this, but I guess I was more qualified than most. So
and qualified than that.
Exactly. So it was a really exciting kind of time to be able to try and define those regulations and legislations and things like that.
That's amazing. That is actually, I think that is amazing. Well done for doing it.
Thank you.
You know, it would have taken some guts.
Pardon
the pun.
It was really and it enabled us. It was driven initially because we wanted to do the research. But actually, it enabled us to do what we want to do, and it's set the groundwork to actually start using this in practice. So it was really, and I learned a lot during the process about all these things I never knew about.
Yeah, well, I mean, just in the legislation or what you can and can't do.
Exactly.
How you can push it. No, not that I.
Well, it's how you can push it, but how you can push it safely and appropriately.
Not ridiculously.
Exactly.
Like push gummies from New Zealand.
Yeah.
They're creatine. Anyway, we often think of digestion when we hear gut health, But it impacts so much more. Our immune system, mental health, even our weight. Can you break down what the I can't even say it.
Microbiome.
Microbiome.
So
Micro and biome. Okay.
So biome is I guess it's an environment. It's an ecosystem, and microbes, which are organisms.
Right. So it's okay. All right.
Microbiome.
Microbiome actually does. What does it do?
Yeah. So look, microbiome is actually, when people say the microbiome, they're generally referring to the gut microbiome. But actually, you've got a microbiome on your skin, you've got a microbiome in your lungs, and they're all very different. But when most people talk about the microbiome, they're talking about the microbiome, the organisms.
Yes.
So you've got billions of different organisms. Think of it like your rainforest.
Yeah.
You can break them down in lots of different ways. You can think about good ones, bad ones, pro-inflammatory, anti-inflammatory. You can think about it's not just bacteria. So there's viruses, there's fungi, there's all these other things out there, and they all live in this harmony. And traditionally what you're referring to is within your large bowel, which is the most steady state microbiome. Okay. And that's got the largest kind of mass of organisms that are there. And so that's what the microbiome actually is.
Okay.
That will change over time, right? And it generally always fluctuates over time.
Yeah.
But that then has a link with the rest of your body. So what I was talking about before, in the past, we thought that there was your gut lining was this kind of solid state that there was nothing happened to it, there was no crosstalk, but there's always crosstalk between the microbiome and within your body itself. That would be traditionally your immune system.
Yeah.
There's the whole concept of leaky gut.
Yes.
Where there's an increased kind of crosstalk, but everyone has some form of crosstalk. It's your body sensing what's going on within your gut, and that can lead and drive to either a reduction in your immune system or an increase in the immune system as one way, but also the microbiome. You mentioned digestion. Your microbiome breaks down a lot of food products, and produces other metabolites that has impact everywhere else. And you mentioned mental health as a prime example. Yeah. Like a large portion of we call neurotransmitters, these metabolites that work in your brain. So things like serotonin. Most of it's 90+% of it gets made by microbiome, by organisms in the gut. So it is directly entirely linked. And it makes sense why, if you can get some of your diet right, your lifestyle right, how that can have a huge impact on the rest of your body.
Yeah.
And a lot of it will have lots of pathways, but a lot of it does impact your microbiome, and therefore downstream should help the rest of your body.
So if gut is so important, obviously it is, what are some of the things that you never put in your mouth?
I think never's a strong word. I think let's call it what it is. We all have to live is probably our first number one.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, okay.
So never is a strong word.
Okay. And that's what I love about you. Even when I came to you with my liver thing, I was like, no drinking, no nothing, like just clean. And you were like, it's not practical.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, that's it.
You can do something. You can do something 100%. But if you're having as big an impact on your mental health and I think I would talk. We've talked about this before, but you've got this whole word called gut-brain interaction. You've got all these other things on the outside of your gut that will have as big a feedback onto the gut composition. So if something causes more stress, and we can talk a little bit more about it, but if it causes more stress, it'll have more impact in your gut health and more impact in the rest of your body too. So in terms of, I never say never, right? Everything in moderation, But ultimately, kind of a few things that I always talk about is if something looks too good to be true, or lasts longer than it should,
like the 24-year McDonald's burger.
Any of those things.
Yes.
Even I talk about some of the bread products that you think about your nice Iggy sourdough down the road. It'll last 3 days on your kitchen counter before going rock solid.
Yes.
But a bread in a bag will last you a week, and the first thing you notice is a bit of mold.
Yes.
It's got something in there to do it. And even things like that will have as bigger impact. It will have more impact than people get worried about gluten and dairy.
Yeah.
It's actually probably more the preservatives in it than anything else. So if something has, the way.
And is that why the wine then, the preservatives in the wine? Like I can't drink wine anymore because it just makes my nose.
I think so. The wine thing's an interesting one, and not all preservative. They've kind of put it as a blanket term, and there's not even things like emulsifiers, which also give a really bad rap. They're the thing that keep things together. So things like mayonnaise that keeps things together, and again, something that looks too good to be true, has got things in it, but not all emulsifiers are as bad as each other. It's some okay, same thing with preservatives. But yes, I think that part of the rationale with wine is it's got other preservatives in it. And some people swear by these organic or the but even how do you define organic? It's complex.
Yeah,
but the low preservative type wines, you'll do better than some of the other wines that you'll get.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's never a never.
Never.
But
if you can, minimize things in a packet.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
So the Iggy's and why? So is it sourdough then?
I guess that was an example, but it's more whole. It was fresh. It was made. It was fresh. Like you think about pasta, and you can buy pasta in the fridge section of Coles.
Yes.
Why does it need to be in a fridge as opposed to a box that can sit in your drawer for 6 months and survive? But the one in the fridge, as soon as you take it out of the fridge, it has less things in there, so it has to be kept cool. It has to be used with a certain shelf life.
Okay, I'm throwing out a few boxes of pasta.
Again, everything in moderation. And again, you've got kids as well. I've got kids as well. You've got to pick your battles. You've got to make it sustainable. Because you can do something for a week and throw it out the window and it's not going to give you any benefit.
True. Okay, all right, good. All right, let's talk about the thing that blew my mind, the Poo Transplants. What exactly is faecal microbiota transplant and why is it so powerful?
Okay. So we'll call it FMT. Easy to say, easy to do.
Yeah.
So we talked about how your microbiome drives a lot of things in your gut. And when the term dysbiosis refers to when that ecosystem goes out of balance.
Yeah.
Okay, so fire goes through your rainforest. Best way to say it, most of the trees go down and you've got this kind of, instead of have these beautiful lush rainforests, you've got these little shrubs that are growing everywhere that isn't quite right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that drives what we think drives a lot of chronic illness. So you can do lots of things to change your microbiome. You can, it's impacted by the air you breathe, the medicines you take, the diet you have. Exercise will have an independent effect on it.
Wow.
It's type of exercise too. But pre and probiotics can have an impact in some way or form on that ecosystem. But again, it's an ecosystem. It's got millions of different things.
Yes.
So you think about your fecal transplant is as your ultimate probiotic. So you're taking an entire ecosystem from someone who's healthy, and that is through their poo. So they donate poo, like you can go donate blood.
Yes.
You can go donate poo.
And is there like a requirement? Or
yes,
you have
really strict requirement.
Oh, really?
So one, you want someone who's healthy. There's no point of taking someone who's got an unhealthy microbiome or who's got diseases to transfer to. You also want to make sure there's no infections to transfer. You also, we don't, and this is part of those long-term effects, we don't know if someone is a donor and they are going to develop a disease down the track. Can you transfer that predisposition? So they're really heavily screened. And a lot of our work early on was when we were trying to find our own donors, our data show that about 3% of donors are actually eligible to donate. So it actually was really hard to find these donors.
Yeah.
And that was one of the hardest troubles because we used to get it from relatives. You say, well, if you needed this for, say, an infection, like we used to treat, we still do, Clostridium difficile infection. It's a really severe infection. They would have to find their own donors. We would screen them, and that's how we did it. Nowadays, since there's been the whole TGA overhaul, there is stool banks. So like you can, if you need a blood transfusion, we call the Red Cross, and the Red Cross sends it along.
Yes.
There is 2 national stool banks. So if we need Poo Transplants, there's the Red Cross now have a stool bank as part of it. So they've got breast milk, and they've got poo, and they've got blood.
Wow.
So they supply some, and there's a company in Adelaide called Biobank, which was actually set up by colleagues of mine, gastroenterologists as well, who set up. And again, I need poo, I give them a call, and it arrives on my doorstep whenever you
And
need.
do you then just go, I need poo from someone that is this, or is is it like a?
That's one of the good things is what makes a good donor. So you have to make what makes a safe donor versus what makes a good donor. So all the screening that gets done about history. What their past history is, any medications, any of that kind of things, is all about safety. And that's our number one concern in anything you do. You don't want to do anything that could put the patient at risk. So you're transferring any infections or predispositions. there's still a lot of debate about what makes the good donor. Is there a super donor, a
Yeah.
super poo donor? And that there's been a lot of work gone into that place. And to give an example, there probably is super donors. An example in our trials that I mentioned before with ulcerative colitis,
Yes.
we used 2 donors. We screened their microbiome. So we did in-depth looking at their microbiome.
Yeah.
We found 2 that we really liked.
And when you did that, do you look at their poo?
Yeah.
Like
so,
you,
yeah,
so
we
you
take
screen
their poo.
Take their poo. You look at
we
it.
do microbiome analysis.
Yeah.
So it gives you a full composition of everything that goes on. And using our knowledge from previous studies, we have various criteria which ones we took. Because again, you don't want to embark on a multiple year study, a lot of effort, and then you get a negative result, and it's because you picked the wrong donors.
Yes.
So we did this, and we thought we picked 2 really good donors. We used 2 donors, and at the end of it, one donor had 100% success rate for patients doing really well, and the other donor had 30% success rate. So there is still, but that's in one condition. So you can't extrapolate to everything. But so what makes a safe donor? What makes a good donor is 2 separate things. We know what makes a safe donor. We don't know entirely what makes a good donor.
Okay.
And that's still a work in progress.
Okay. And I'm sure that's something that you are.
I think a lot of people are trying to understand what makes a good donor.
Yeah.
But saying, and it depends a little bit on what you're trying to treat as well.
Okay.
And that also changes.
Yes.
So if we're trying to treat Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, is that different to someone trying to treat a skin condition or
depression
or something else of the sort? Exactly. So they're all very different things. But you really, what happens then is you get the donor, you get the poo, and you have to give it in some way or form. So traditionally what we do now is you do a colonoscopy. So you do a colonoscopy.
Yes.
And then we put the poo down the colonoscope into the end of your colon.
Yes.
There's no science behind it. We give people gastrostop or like something to slow you down to keep it in there for as long as we can.
Yeah.
And we keep people in bed for about an extra half an hour after, just trying to keep gravity out of the picture, literally. So this is...
It just stays still.
It stays still. And that's how we do it traditionally. You can do it...
And does it, do you do that in a capsule?
No, so that's all liquid down through the colonoscope.
Yeah, right, okay.
We were, part of my PhD, we were making capsules where you could freeze-dry the poo.
Yep.
You freeze dry it, so it turns it into a powder, no longer looks or smells like poo.
Yeah.
And then you can put it in capsules and it's suddenly stable at room temperature and it's therefore it is your ultimate probiotic. And so therefore you can take them as capsules. And you can suddenly opens up to the door of using it a bit more longer term, particularly for chronic illness. And we showed that it's probably, I'd much prefer doing it that way.
Yeah.
There's no
it's
TGF
probably less
free product.
invasive as
Exactly.
well.
We don't need to do the colonoscopy, which is, again, less procedures, the better.
Yeah.
But also the other problem with the colonoscopy is that most chronic illness, you're probably going to need some sort of intervention longer time. And doing colonoscopies regularly, you just can't do.
Yeah.
You can do by enemas, so literally a syringe that goes in your bottom and it squirts it up. That's what an enema is.
Yeah.
That probably has a role in maybe in those longer term, but really the only practical way is either regular capsules or having some other intervention. So I use a combination of different prebiotics after.
Yes.
Again, we're trying to put some evidence to that, but it has very little harm, and I think we'll have to feed the right microbiome after. So the probiotics things, the prebiotics feed the right microbiome. So it's like pouring fertilizer and water on your garden bed as opposed to throwing seeds on it every day. And can that kind of feed the bugs that you've just introduced to allow them to grow and do what they need to do and engraft and do what they need to do?
So at the moment, I'm on antibiotics because I've had this cold that just won't go away and I've been tested for everything. The antibiotics in my gut are killing everything down there.
Yeah.
What do I need to do?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And this is where there's a bit of debate about the use of prebiotics. The other thing is when you say probiotics or prebiotics, you're talking about 100 different products, all have different effects, and which one's the right one?
Efficacies
exactly. And so we don't routinely necessarily say take probiotics after, unless, though saying that though, that's as a routine.
Yes.
It can stop people getting diarrhea from antibiotics.
Okay.
It can stop people getting thrush after antibiotics.
Yeah.
So it can stop problems that can come after antibiotics.
Okay.
So if you're one of those people that do get it, there's very little harm in using it. Mm-hmm. But if you find and you bounce back after antibiotics, your gut's pretty resilient. It'll kind of bounce back. And maybe you're just better off sticking to those whole foods, giving it all the right bugs that it needs to actually recover.
From food.
From
food is medicine.
If you can, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So, we don't routinely recommend it unless there's something else that comes from the antibiotics.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do you think about yogurt?
Again, there's not all yogurt's the same.
Yeah.
In terms, there's a lot of really good properties about it, but there's a lot of good
no.
properties about it. And I think it's again, it's a whole food. It's good.
It's so interesting. It always is. Like when you give like a general,
Yeah.
what about this? It's like, well, what's in it?
Yeah,
Well, what's in
exactly,
it? Well, what's
exactly.
in it? Like
And
it can't
that-
be the sugar-based one. It needs to be the fewer ingredients, the better.
And this is where I think I would have told you as well. But the as a probiotic, the products that you will see are the products that have the best marketing budget, not necessarily the ones that have had the best evidence.
Yes.
So you have to learn to look at the labels, what's in these things, and why is it being advertised to me? Is it better than anything else?
Yeah.
Or is the company behind it have got the best marketing budget?
Yeah.
And that's a really important thing to think about.
Yeah. And see, that's the hard thing is what is?
Yeah.
Like, how do you know
Exactly.
what is the best?
Exactly. And I struggle with it. And if I struggle with it,
struggle.
and then how, and that's
yeah.
one of what we're trying to do now, particularly there's a lot of really interesting work in prebiotics. So again, let's come back to prebiotics. I much prefer using prebiotics for fiber and other types of things rather than probiotics.
Yes.
They cheaper.
Yes. Well, I think you recommended to me the psyllium husk.
Yeah.
Like the psyllium husk or the chia or just to...
So I've always taken the tact, if a product is still being used and no one's making money from it, then it's a win, right? And that's slightly cynical approach.
Yeah.
But it's a win. So look, psyllium husk by definition doesn't have a lot of prebiotic properties.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
But flow comes into play, and I don't know whether this kind of slightly again going off tangent and everything else, but flow is as important as getting that. You're emptying your bowels, working properly is as important as actually the products that you actually put in.
Yeah, wow. And that is what, to just clean it out and make it regular. And
best way to think about it.
Yeah.
Your gut is one long tube from your mouth all the way through to your bottom. Think of it like a river system.
Yeah.
If you get a nice, healthy flowing river system, you get nice, healthy drinking water. If something impacts flow of that river system, you'll get a buildup of moss and dirty water all the way throughout the system. You can chuck chlorine tablets in there. You can do what you like. But unless you get the flow right, it isn't going to get better. Your gut is exactly the same. If you get something that impacts flow, and we talk about pelvic floor, you talk about kind of constipation, you get a build-up of poo, but you also get a build-up of different organisms.
Yes.
And that's not just in your large bowel, all the way up. And it'll cause troubles with reflux, it'll cause troubles with lots of other things.
But it will also cause troubles with behaviour as well. Everything.
And so you can use certain diets, you can use probiotics, you can even use FMT.
Yeah.
But unless you fix the underlying flow issue, it'll be transient because it will just go back to kind of where it is. So you can't just think when I use fecal transplants and I will always do it in conjunction with whatever else they're doing, but also it has to be as part of a greater plan. So why is your microbiome like this in the first place?
Yeah.
And unless we fix it at the same time, whatever we do is less likely to be long-lived.
Because that's really interesting. So a friend of mine, their child was constipated, like really constipated. And I think it's more environmental than what's going in. But it's interesting that everything impacts.
And you think about it, you talk about the kids, right?
Yeah.
I know this is not our demographic of the podcast.
Well, everyone does.
Exactly.
Well, not everyone, but there's a large percentage.
I take my 8-year-old son won't poo at school. For example, if my 8-year-old boy won't poo at school, how do you expect a 13-year-old female to poo at school? Right? And then if you think about there's normal physiology, poo enters the colon in the morning, in the pelvis in the morning. You'll get that urge to go to the toilet. If you miss that urge to go, you won't get it again until the next day.
Oh, really?
And if you suddenly start mucking around with missing your body's cues and not listening to your body, then you'll start changing your pelvic floor comes into play, and it's not. Most people think pelvic floor is post babies and weakness, but it's actually a problem with lack of relaxation of the pelvic floor, and that starts as a teenager. And if you lose that ability to fully empty your bowel, therefore it's going to impact that flow. Come back to that flow,
right?
And so if you can start getting that by listening to your body going when you're to the toilet, that will have a bigger impact over time to your microbiome than any product that you'll buy on the shelf.
Isn't that interesting? Because even like with kids, I need to go to the toilet. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Wait until we've got to do something. But we should actually be going, okay, let's clean the toilet.
Have some time.
Yeah.
And like I was talking about whether I try implement something at my kids' school to say, well, actually just let them go. Make sure the toilets are clean. I think it's the first thing.
Yes.
Give them peace and quiet to actually go.
Yeah.
And in fact, actually, the Queensland, not just for kids, the Queensland government spent a lot of money recently on an advertising campaign, and it was literally with a bright coloured dolphin, poo at work, right? And it's the exact same thing. And it's probably the biggest thing is listen, find yourself a nice toilet at where you work and don't be afraid to use it. Just go for it.
Hey.
But it's simple things like that can make as big an impact on your gut microbiome. Just thinking about getting that flow right. And that's why psyllium husk I find works because a small amount of it helps
cheap,
you go. It's cheap and cheerful.
You can use it every day.
Exactly.
And put it in a smoothie.
Exactly. You can do it however you want to do it. And it doesn't have the prebiotic properties itself, but it will have a prebiotic benefit because it will just getting that flow right.
And and the flow to prepare your gut so that it can take everything.
And help you empty when you need to go to the toilet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. What about chia seeds then?
Again, same kind of thing. It has that same potential benefits with emptying. Anything like that, I'm very happy with.
Great.
Yeah.
Tick, done that.
Tick advice.
Do you think this is the future of medicine, or do we have a long way to go before it's mainstream?
I think it's already mainstream because every person it's no longer the doctor tells the patient what to do. The patient takes it with a grain of salt. Or takes everything, listens to it, does it 100%.
Yeah.
We're gone to the days of that.
Yeah, I think 100%.
You put it,
unless the older generations, like my nan, she will listen to everything.
Yes, you're right. But the older generation also comes with their daughter in tow, then you go and Google everything as well. No, but we should. You should be like everyone should be taking control over their own health.
I could not agree more with that.
And so, there was a study from a few years ago that said that, as an example, 25% of the US population was taking probiotics in 2019. So a quarter of the population as a way of some way taking control over their gut health, right? At that time, 45% were thinking about starting one. And I guarantee if they redid that study now, it would flip the numbers around the other way. So close to half the population will be doing something to help their gut microbiome.
Yeah, wow.
So I think it already is mainstream.
Okay, mainstream.
But what is probably better is that you can't open a medical journal in any specialty without seeing a paper on the gut microbiome and looking at how that will impact in some way treatment outcomes, whether it be from cancer space, whether it be your gut microbiome. There's some really fascinating stuff in the cancer world, and that's what a lot of our research is in now at the moment. How your gut microbiome can influence how you respond to different therapies, how it can cause different things, side effects. And so therefore you suddenly got this interplay between the wellness world and medicine.
Yeah.
Where you can have everything you do will not just work. It shouldn't be alternative. It shouldn't be, I don't like this medicine that the doctor's given me, I'm going to go to my naturopath. It should be, how can the two work together?
And I think that's the amazing thing is if you are taking ownership of your health, you are getting your team of specialists, whether they are the naturopaths or the wellness space or the medical space, and they're working together.
And you're an active part of that.
Yeah,
everything
you have
do
to be.
will have an impact.
And everything you eat.
Exactly.
As you get older, what changes to your gut?
So naturally over time, your diversity changes. So how many different types of plants, if you think
I think the rainforest and thinking about your gut as like that is brilliant because you've got the tall tree, like everything.
Exactly. And so the number of different types of plants start to drop. Your tree heights start to get shorter.
Yes.
It's not quite as luscious. And that's just one of those things that come with aging.
Yeah.
Hormones play a role in that too. Yes. So menopause is another kind of change. It changes everything.
Yeah.
So all these things start to kind of have an impact. And you recover quicker from after an course of antibiotics. Things take longer to recover. And probably, again, it's hard to get the right evidence, but there probably is more crosstalk between that gut and your rest of your immune system. And I think that's why one of the many reasons why the rates of chronic illness start to go up around that time as well. And I know you had a great podcast on inflammation. I listened to it, and there's a lot of crosstalk between that because part of that driver is not just your immune system changing it, but it's that gut microbiome changing.
should we be doing as we get older to make sure that it is healthy?
It is. I think we've got to be, we talked about the what never should put in your mouth.
Yeah.
Anyway, I often talk about it in moderation, but maybe that moderation needs to be a slightly tighter moderation.
Yeah.
And so maybe we have to be that little bit more careful about keeping more to that whole food type diet, less preservatives, be a little bit more careful with the antibiotic use if we can do that. Focus a bit more on exercise and making sure that balance is there. And doing adjusting what you're doing a little bit, being a little bit more careful as we get on.
Yeah, okay. So, but I think this again comes back to you owning it. It's you being mindful about what you put in your mouth, about what you're doing in the environment around you, and just making sure that you can actually control that.
Exactly.
And not control it, but like impact it.
And listening to your own body's cues. Your body is really good. There's a whole concept of interoception, which was coined by or talked about by a neuropsychologist. I forgot his name, but it was a great book, actually. I can send it through. But looking at those own body's cues, you think about even things like when your tummy rumbles, telling you that it's hunger. It's that link between what's happening inside with what you can feel on the outside.
Yeah.
And we live in society at the moment that eats when they're not hungry. They ignore, they don't poo when they need to. Try to do things when they don't need to do it.
Yeah.
And so we're not listening. We're so busy in doing so. And so maybe it's sometimes what I think it's taking it that little bit of step back and saying, well, what does your body? Listen to your body. Listen to those cues. Respond. Understand what's happening in your own body. And don't fight it. Go with it.
So when Amelia, who was talking about the inflammation, was on, she said something like one of her tips is stop eating when you think you're hungry and actually wait until your stomach is hungry or starts to rumble.
Exactly.
And I think we've got to be doing that more.
Exactly. So it's listening, understand what your body needs.
Yeah.
Understanding and stop forcing it to do what you want it to do, because sometimes it's not the right thing.
Yeah, I think that is. So there's so much talk about, and we've talked about it, the gut-brain axis. How much of our mood is actually controlled by our gut?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. So gut-brain axis. Yeah. So everyone knows the best way to think about it is that everyone knows about the nervous poos. You're anxious, you're nervous, you go to the toilet, you may have more bloating, you may have troubles. And that's just that gut-brain interaction that's constantly working. And it's not just one-way traffic, it's both ways. Right?
Okay.
So the way I like to talk to people about bloating, right?
Yep.
Bloating is a common symptom. Half the world's population have some form of irritable bowel.
Yes.
Which the new term for irritable bowel is actually disorders of the gut-brain interaction. So it's
really?
They've changed the terminology of it. It's no longer, and also irritable bowel is such a terrible term. It's so long been used as a throwaway. So
You've obviously got
But half the world's population, more than half, have some form of it, and will have as big an impact on someone's life than some other chronic illness. And there's so many things you can actually do to treat it. But that comes down to that gut-brain interaction. So way I describe this, you've got all this almost second brain on the outside of your gut that senses part of what's going on the inside. That sends messages back up to the brain. The brain interprets those messages in some way or form and then sends other messages and hormones back down to the gut. And that is a cycle.
Yeah.
And so something can trigger that cycle off, whether it be an illness, whether it be a stressful event, something turbocharges that cycle. And then it's really hard to kind of wind that cycle back down. So we know your brain, like in people with symptoms, for example, will have more activity in the certain parts of the brain to normal stimulus.
Yeah, okay.
So where other people won't even have any activity, they'll be reacting to things that are going inside the gut.
So if you are living in constant fight or flight, that's obviously extremely bad for your gut.
Exactly.
And is that then at that point where you need to stop and just take a breath or try and get the nervous system under control?
Yeah, exactly right. And so there's something called gut hemotherapy. I don't know if you've...
No.
The gut
What
hemotherapy...
is that?
Exactly. So it recognizes that whole link, that whole gut-brain interaction that's constantly on firing. Gut hemotherapy was designed by the same people that made the FODMAP diet down in Monash University.
Yes. Okay.
It brings in mindfulness, meditation, and other imagery techniques. It works as well as diet in bloating, pain, and change of bowel habits. Right? A 6-week program will have this prolonged benefit. And so I spend my life actually liberalizing people's diet because I think that no one needs to be on a long-term restrictive diet. And they said, well, actually, whatever we do with probiotics, with diet, even with poo transplants,
Yeah.
is treating one side of the picture.
Yeah.
But
And
it's
not
in
the whole.
neglecting everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
So if you can micromanage what goes in your mouth to the tea, but you're not going to get very far.
But that's not the environment.
Exactly.
And see, this is like a great thing is if you think about you and you own you and your health,
Exactly.
it's not only what goes in,
Exactly.
but the environment you're in.
Exactly. And there's a really nice thing with exercise. So we know that exercise will...
Oh, and also movement.
Yeah,
so it is like food,
It is
movement,
and-
environment.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
okay.
a lot of that gut hemotherapy, that works in various different ways, but it starts to switch off that cycle. And like you can supercharge it, it takes a little bit to start winding it back.
Yeah, okay.
And it works. It works really. And there's randomized trials that show that it works.
And the exercise.
Yeah.
What is the best exercise for your gut?
So there was actually, I found a study. It took people take the exact same exercise, so say running as an example, same intensity, same diet. One group ran inside on a treadmill. The other group ran in a forest, on a rainforest, somewhere outdoors.
Yeah, sorry.
And the rainforest or the outdoors group had a better impact on their microbiome for the exact same amount of exercise, energy, diet than the group running inside.
That is
and they called it was nature size or something of the sort. But it was a great concept. It was showing that actually that
getting
outdoor
outside,
environment, that fresh air, everything around it has an independent improvement in your microbiome. That's not just all the other health benefits, but actually changes your microbiome regardless of the same diet.
It's so interesting. It's so fascinating that it's holistic.
Exactly.
Like it is actually holistic in the way that we need to approach it.
But I think what's the best exercise is probably one that you enjoy doing.
Yeah,
that you're actually going to do, that you can actually start to switch off.
Yeah.
And I found I do exercise. I took away my headphones and started actually, I don't use the headphones anymore. And I actually found that had an improvement on my mental health as well. But just that switching off, slowing down, I found I was more effective at the gym and doing other things when I actually took away some of that.
The noise.
Yeah.
It's funny, even like, because I was always on, like always having to learn something, listen to something, do something in the car, had to have, like just be listening to a podcast or something or an audio book or something. And I've just stopped because the noise, like it's just nice having nothing sometimes.
Exactly. And I think it's probably will tone down all those kind of, we talk about gut-brain interaction, all that noise will probably have an impact. The stimulus that by definition should feed back down to your gut and have that impact.
Yeah, okay. So something that I found fascinating, which is when we started talking, was you're involved in academic research. What are the most exciting developments in gut health right now?
So I think
that you can talk about.
No, of course. There's so many great things. I do research because I'm interested by research.
Yes.
Well, I don't care too much about papers that come out.
Yeah.
I want to see change. I want to see things that I want to do something that can change patients sitting in front of me, because that's who I'm. I'm a clinician at heart.
Yes.
And that is my goal. That is my kind of world. And then everything else comes around there. So as an example, what's really exciting is that there is acceptance of the microbiome in every different specialty, that it can help disease.
Uh-huh.
And a prime example of that is in the cancer space. We know that, for example, immunotherapy.
Yes.
Immunotherapy was designed many years ago that turns on someone's immune system to fight cancer.
Mm-hmm.
It is a game changer for melanoma. It's a game changer for a lot of other cancers.
Yes.
There's still portions of people that don't respond to immunotherapy. And there's there was some really great research that showed that if someone doesn't respond to their cancer immunotherapy with melanoma, you could take poo from someone who had melanoma that responded to the immunotherapy. You give it to the patient that isn't responding. You don't change anything else, and suddenly their cancer switches off.
Holy.
And so it shows that it's, whilst you're just turning on the immune system, there's more drivers. And so you can suddenly change outcomes. And amazing outcomes.
Yeah.
So one of the trials that we're running at the moment is using fecal transplants by capsules, as we talked about, in patients that get a lot of side effects from their immunotherapy. So some patients will develop this bowel inflammation that looks a lot like Crohn's disease. And we've got a randomized trial using these capsules to treat this illness. Wow. But what's even more exciting, even that'll answer one question about preventative. So you can suddenly say at the start of their cancer journey, can you do something to improve their microbiome? And there's simple, like even some research showing that the amount of fiber in your diet, every 5 gram increase, I think it's a 5 gram, will improve your success rates from cancer therapy by a certain percentage. And that's not controlled data. That's just questionnaires. But it's such a simple thing that the person can take control of rather than the doctor taking control of. Say, well, what can I do to improve my diet? What things can I do to have a measurable and beneficial impact?
Yeah.
And that's probably the exciting bit, is how can you do it to empower the patient to take control and to actually improve your outcomes?
Yeah, I think the empowering of patient, that's amazing.
Yeah.
What are the biggest misconceptions you hear about gut health that drive you crazy?
Okay. Slightly polarizing kind of, yeah. I think I've got to bite my tongue a little bit. No, I think
Don't bite your tongue.
I'm a big advocate of no long-term restrictive diets. Right? So gluten and dairy, for example, has been demonized by everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not saying everyone should go for gold with all these kind of things.
Yes.
Everyone's circumstances are different, but there's very few people that need to be on a no gluten or no dairy diet. You can do low gluten, low dairy.
Yeah.
But as soon as there's that, think of actually. I'm going to pose this a little bit quick. Say you have high blood pressure.
Yes.
I talk about cholesterol.
Yes.
You go on a cholesterol drug.
Yes.
If it's causing you trouble,
Yes.
or if it's not dropping your cholesterol,
Yes.
you're not going to continue taking the drug.
No. Yes.
People get put onto a gluten-free diet
Yep.
or dairy-free diet as a way of treating something, whether it be their skin, their bloating, there's something else. But if it doesn't improve their bloating or it doesn't improve their skin, they're on it seemingly forever.
Yeah. Okay.
They don't stop that diet. Then more importantly than that, then suddenly it starts to impact when they go out for dinner. They're worrying about what they put in their mouth, even though it probably has no difference to anything else.
Yeah.
But that psychological impact has a bigger impact on their life than anything it was trying to treat.
Yeah, right.
And it's really, I talk to people.
That's such an interesting way of thinking.
Yeah. And so I talk to people and say, like, I actually really want to liberalize your diet. And we can talk to a dietitian and help you do it slowly.
Yes.
Been on this for not something go.
No, you can.
And people burst into tears when they say it because it's actually they hide a lot of things. And we all know this. We're all really good at putting on facades and everything else. But it has a huge impact in someone's life.
Yeah.
And just that food choices. So if something causes more grief than benefit, then there's no point of continuing. We have to think of it another way of doing it. And again, a lot of the time it's not the gluten, it's the preserve. We talked about the packets. Whereas people all the time, they go to Italy and have as much beer and pizza as they like, and they're perfectly fine.
Yep.
So the same amount of gluten content. It's often just a different form of yeast or a different something else with less preservatives. And always have to be clear, what are you trying to achieve with any intervention, whether it be diet, medication, supplement.
Yeah.
If it's causing more grief, whether it be psychologically, financially, anything else, or if it's not meeting those goals, then reassess whether it's necessary. Yeah. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I find is that, it's not a one size fits all.
Yeah. And I mean, as you've kept saying, the never
is a strong word. Never say never. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there anything you've changed about your own health approach as you've learned more about your gut health?
Yeah, also a good question. I guess more recently, in the last few years, I've as my kids are slowly getting a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
I looked at my kind of own life and health, and back when I finished my PhD and trying to find again what I want in life and that balance. And I took on a few things, and again, I like to research a lot of these things too, and other factors.
Well, so we can learn
exactly. So like certain things, like I realized that I exercise not just good for my own body, it's good for my mental health too. And so I've shifted starting my consulting sessions at 8:30 instead of to 9. And so I know I can have time in the morning to do some exercise.
Yes.
And that way it gets me off on a great day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of those really
sets you up for the best day.
I put psyllium on my breakfast every morning.
Oh, really?
And I try to sneak it into my kids' breakfast if I can.
Yeah, okay.
So
and it always in the morning rather than, and it's not morning or
think
night.
about it. Say, well, what is your biggest source of whole? So not all fibers equal. So come back to that question. There's a lot of subtypes of it, but if you the simplest way is you got your fruit and veg fiber and you got your whole grain type fiber.
Yeah.
when do most people have their whole grains? It's usually cereals, it's those kind of
Yeah.
breakfasts. So I have oats and I stick a teaspoon of, that's all. You don't need very much.
Yeah,
Teaspoon
yeah.
of psyllium every morning with a whole lot of other stuff like berries and a few things. And that's one of the things I've done. And
Okay.
we get the cheap and cheerful
Yeah.
from Woolies.
Yep.
Bag will cost you $6. It'll last you 6 months. And that's all we
And
get.
is it organic or not organic?
It doesn't
You don't
it's
care.
the top of a husk. It's a
Yeah.
it's a top of a husk. There's not much organic things about it, right? So
Okay.
again, you can't change everything.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
As long as you're having it.
as long
and
as I
doing
have
it. Yep.
So that's one of the things that I have done.
Yep.
But it's also and again, starting late and then listening more to my own body. So on the way here,
I really love
I was
that.
going to grab picked up a cup of coffee. Instead, I sat down and I'll just sit down and enjoy the cup of coffee and just wind down, put it down the phone. So those kind of things, just switching off a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
And winding back, listen to my own self.
I think, it is because we're always on.
Yeah,
Like always on.
Always on.
Always on.
Always on.
That sometimes it is nice just silence.
Yeah, and it's never silent.
No,
up
I
here.
know.
It's
But
constantly going
the
outside,
background noise.
outside. Yeah, and that's why we've talked a bit about before. I speak at Quingana and run a retreat, but I actually really I use that as my own also little retreat of myself.
Okay,
So it's just switching off. It's switching off from reality. I can actually tell work, call me if there's an emergency. Otherwise, we'll back next week.
And your Gwyngarna retreat, you do with a cardiologist?
Yeah.
Can you just talk about that?
So I was I'd never heard of Quingana before I was asked to go down. And I was asked to go down by up. Yeah.
Yes.
I was asked by the cardiologist to go and talk. He's been going there for 8+ years, talking about heart health. And he used to do it with a neurologist at one stage, and there was obviously now with gut health. And I went down there once, and it was really interesting talking to everyone there. It was there was a few people there that were there for the first time. You'll never see for someone say, "This is my last time I'm going to be here."
No.
Right? So once you go once, you're almost like clocking it.
There's always something to look at. Oh, what about that one?
Well, and it's what I loved about it was the phone. There's no phone reception.
No.
There's no laptops. It's a structured kind of semi-structured kind of
workshop.
So you don't need to think about these things. You don't need to think about what I'm going to do the day. The food's amazing. Whole foods. They don't do dairy and gluten free.
Yes,
it's whole foods. I have meat and a few things there too.
Yeah.
And so I felt refreshed. So I remember calling him up a few days later. I was like, I'm coming back. Like, I don't care if you want me or not. I'm coming back. And I said that same thing to the owner. And I was like, I'm coming back. I don't really care what happens. And I love it for me.
Yeah.
And so we go down there, and it's now my wife goes down there regularly.
Yeah.
It's such a lovely.
It's just a reset.
It's a reset.
It is a reset. And you do need a reset just to go. Deep breath. Yeah.
And what I actually found, every time I come back, I've got all these great ideas about what to do with other things because I've had time to kind of process what I want in the next little while. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
That is good.
Yeah.
If you could only do one thing in your career, from now on, private practice, research, education, what would you choose?
That's the hardest question of the lot. I still don't know. That's my biggest thing. So there's all this saying in medicine is that whenever you ask someone, how do you find that balance between public work at the public hospital, private practice and academia, they say one of 4 things will fail: the public work, the private work, the academia, or your family, right?
Yes.
And that's the saying.
Yeah.
And so I know inevitably, at least not the family bit, at least one of those other three will fall away. And I don't know which ones they are.
Yeah.
And actually I use things like Wingana or something as a way of saying, well, what do I want? What balance do I want? Take that break, take a switch off from everything. And so I use those kind of days to kind of figure that out.
Yeah.
But if I think it would end up being a clinician.
Yeah,
I love working with patients.
Yeah,
and you kind of, I don't get over involved, but I'm invested in them. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them feeling better, and I'm a doctor and foremost.
Yeah,
I think out of one of those things.
Yeah. I think you'd miss the research though.
I would.
I think you would.
I would. I would.
Yeah,
I would. What's really nice about the public system is that we're linked at St Vincent's with the Garvan Institute, UNSW.
Amazing.
So there's a lot smarter people than I am that sit in the lab that do all these things that they need access to patients. And so we do a lot of collaborative research where we have questions that need to be asked. So all my inquisitive minds,
yes.
they can say, oh, great, we can do X, Y, and Z to try and figure this out, tease this out. And then, so it's a lot of it's collaborative work. So
Amazing.
it's no longer me on the ground doing lots of things. I don't spend any time in the lab, but we've got lots of students and lots of collaborators that do it. And so you can still stay in academia without being too heavily invested in academia.
Which is probably where your four
which
things,
I suspect will end up.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
If you could put one message about gut health on a billboard, what would it say?
I reckon poo at work. Don't be afraid to poo when you need to poo. Don't be afraid to poo when you need to poo.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's so interesting because there's so many people that do hold
and no one
it in.
talks about it. And no one talks about poo. No one talks about poo. But I guarantee you, next time you're at a dinner party, you bring up poo, everyone else at the dinner party will tell you all about their kind of gut troubles. You're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
And we're all
everyone
in the same
poos.
boat. Exactly.
Like everyone poos.
Everyone poos. Exactly.
And
Exactly. And if you don't talk about it, then you miss other things. Like we haven't talked a lot about screening, and that's actually really, really, really important to remember. But if something's not right and you don't talk about it, you don't know what's normal versus abnormal or what things change. So don't be afraid. And if you don't want to talk to friends or family, talk to your doctor.
Yes.
Talk to your doctor. Don't sit on something, literally.
Yeah.
Don't sit on something if something's not right.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about the screening thing then, because I think that is really important.
Yes.
So, I think you can now, because even I requested, you can request a screening kit from the government from 45.
Yes, you can. So there's two. So bowel cancer is a really, fortunately, there's a lot in the news about it, which is really important because people need to be aware of these things. Bowel cancer is one of those cancers that is preventable, which is a really exciting thing because cancers don't just appear. They grow from little polyps. So polyps, if you think about your bowel, think about little moles on your arm. It's the same kind of thing that comes up. You can get these little polyps, these little growths in your bowel that aren't a problem in their own right. But if left alone, they will grow. And when they get to a certain stage, they'll start to turn into a cancer. So most cancers appear from these polyps. That process takes 10 years to go from nothing to a cancer. So you've got this window of opportunity to intervene.
Right.
And so there's two ways you can screen for bowel cancer. There is those poo kits. Everyone, when they turn 50, will start getting every 2 years in the mail, where you poke your poo and it looks for tiny traces of blood. So if you see blood, then you need to go see your doctor. But if it will see, it's for someone who doesn't have any problems with their bowels, you poke it and it starts to look for any polyps that are starting to change and turn into a cancer. That has to be done regularly because it's not designed to look for polyps. It's designed to look for polyps that are changing.
And they've also changed it now. So you do 2 3 days apart.
Yes, you actually do 3. There's three little pokes, and it doesn't matter whether one's positive or 3 positives is considered the same. Okay. They're very sensitive. So they are designed to pick up more things that are there. So if you take a positive test with no other history, 60% will have a normal colonoscopy.
Yes.
38% will have polyps, and just under 2% will have an early cancer. And the key bit is early. A lot of cancer we can treat at the time of colonoscopy, or it's a minor surgery and you move on with life, as opposed to more later. By the time it presents, it's often too late. And so there's a big push because young people are now getting bowel cancer.
One of my friends, she was 35 and she had bowel cancer.
Yeah, we see it every week, unfortunately. We see young people getting bowel cancer.
And what
there's a lot of questions about why is that happening. It's part of it. Each generation gets that little bit younger. But we talked about environment and everything.
Okay.
And there's something in your microbiome that is changing. And there's a lot of work trying to understand it. But the government's now push that screening program to 45, but you have to request it from your doctor.
I requested online.
Online, yes. You have to request it. It won't come to you automatically.
No, yes.
And you can even get it done younger with your GP. So it's a different type of test, but it's you can
and who should do it younger?
No, that's a big question. I think when it comes down to it, if there's ever concern about family history, your own symptoms, a conversation is the first step.
Yeah, okay.
So sitting down with your GP and saying, what is my risk, my individual risk? What can I do to kind of change it? And am I going to start screening now? And if not now, when am I going to start screening? And that's a very appropriate first step. Not everyone needs to have a screening test or a colonoscopy, but it's saying, let's have a game plan in place. And so if you're 30, a lot of people come to see me and say, should I be screened at 30? And I say, well, what's your history? If this is the risks of doing a procedure or this is the risk of doing those screening tests versus the positives, and it depends on how much sleep you're losing over, this is the downsides. And if we're not going to do it now, come back at 40 and let's talk about it.
Yeah. But it's interesting. So my friend, no family history, like none. And she's actually in Germany now because there was another thing where she's actually they've taken a tumor and they're creating a vaccine.
Yeah, wow.
For that, to treat it.
Yes.
I've told her she needs to come back and talk to you when she gets back.
It's really fascinating things about it. Exactly. And there's so much, if found early enough, it's very treatable. And I think that's the really kind of key bit. So if there's any changes to your bowel habits, any bleeding, anything that doesn't feel right, don't just say, oh, it's nothing. If it's just go talk to your GP, and it could all just be, all it may need to be is a conversation, and then you walk away. But have a talk. Better talk. You're going to, there's no point looking back saying, I wish I did speak about it 6 months. And it literally can just be a conversation. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to have a colonoscopy. Those kits are really good. As soon as there's symptoms, the kits are kind of a mute point. So if they designed for a healthy population with no symptoms. So as soon as there's symptoms, everyone who talks about a risk versus benefits approach, but we talk about a colonoscopy to kind of find these things. And if there are polyps there, they get snipped off at the time.
Right.
And you move on and you say, come back in 5 years, 10 years. When
Okay, good. What's the biggest thing people don't realize about their gut health?
I think that everything you do will change something about your gut health.
I think the fascinating of the three things: what you put in your mouth, the environment, and the movement. Like
everything you do have an impact on your gut health. And again, you fix the things you can fix.
Yes.
You pick one thing to change. See how it goes before trying to change everything. Like if you try to change everything and it doesn't fit within your lifestyle.
It was actually really interesting. So Amelia said that one of the things she does is she focuses on one thing for a term. Because I love that. Like
one little thing.
Just one thing.
Turn it into a habit and move on to next.
And then every term, like by the end of the year, you've got 4 things that you've fixed.
I talk to people, I say, well, okay, everyone can improve something in their diet. And so classically you have the question saying, I struggle to lose weight. And you get that question all the time. And again, I'm not a dietitian. I send people to the dietitian. You say, well, write down everything that you put in your mouth for 48 hours and you'll actually start to see trends. And if you're going, the prime example, you don't have, people get hungry, tired and bored in the afternoon, don't eat anything, get home, your kids are eating dinner, you end up eating half of their dinner too without even realizing it. And then you have your dinner, where a lot of it can actually be, if you know it's happening, you have a snack before going home and so you don't get to that stage. So find the 1 or 2 things that you can change. There's no point in changing everything else. And if you can substitute something for something else. So I like to think if you reach for a bag of chips, you reach for something else, grab for a banana instead or grab some bites. So pick the 1 or 2 things that you're not going to notice if you don't have it. But it will have added benefits over time.
Okay. All right, Craig.
Yeah.
This is always fascinating to talk to you. I've learnt a lot and I still will continue to question you going, what? Huh? Tell me. It does make me think and rethink about what is happening in my gut and how so many things impact it and it's not just what you put in. Before we wrap up, I've got one question for you. Before I turn 50, what is one thing you think I should do?
Oh, good question. Can I suggest that there's 2 things? That's the first. The first thing I'll say, get yourself screened, which you've done. You speak to. So that's the number 1 thing. Before you turn 50, think about bowel cancer screening. Something simple, easy, and thing to do. The second thing is, it's my second thing to do is stop and listen to what your body wants. So if you're rushing out the door with a coffee cup, a takeaway coffee cup.
I don't drink coffee.
Okay. Well, They say if you're running out the door with a banana in your hand, ready to go somewhere, just take a seat down for a few minutes on your own and kind of listen to your body's cues. If it needs to go to the toilet, you go to the toilet. If it needs to just chill out and relax, that 5 minutes, you're not going to notice it later in the day.
No, that's a good point. And you know what, even before picking the kids up,
it's great.
Sitting in the car for 5 minutes and just breathing.
I tell people with the gut hemotherapy, it's a great time. Get to school 15 minutes earlier to when on pickups. Because as soon as you get home, it's
you
over.
can't. Yeah, you can't. As soon as you've got
sit in the
another
car,
man.
put your headphones in.
Yeah.
Or you got good radio in the car, put it through in there, put your seat back, and just that 5 minutes of just listening to what your body needs.
It's even yesterday, before I had to go and do something at my son's school, and I got there early and just put on an 8-minute body scan because I knew it was going to be a stressful day, and I was like, I'm just going to let it be, and it was amazing.
And you're never going to notice it 8 minutes.
No.
Then later in the day, and it just sets you up for such a great kind of afternoon, evening, whenever it may be.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it helps just calm.
Calm. Yeah.
Okay, good. I like those two things, and I do like if you're grabbing a banana to eat in the car, eating in the car or drinking in the car, just stop and just don't do it.
Exactly. Sit down at the coffee shop. Sit down somewhere. Just even for 2 minutes. Just sit down and have something to eat. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah. All right, Craig. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your expertise, your research, and your passion for gut health. I know it was when I sat down with you first, I was just fascinated and I needed to know more and more. And I do feel like we have only just scratched the surface. Like, I think there's so much more that we need to understand. But by thinking about what you put in your mouth, your environment, and the movement, I think the holistic approach is such a great way to make sure your gut is actually okay. So thank you for that. If you want to learn more about Craig's work, I'll link everything in the show notes. And if you've enjoyed this episode, hit subscribe, share with a friend, and continue to chat about poo. Because we all need to talk about poo. It can't be a taboo topic. And before you go, try this before you're 50. Have a poo scan or the bowel scan, and also take the time to listen to your body. Give it a go, see how it changes what you're doing, and let me know. Because we're nearly 50, and isn't it amazing?